We got number 8 Oregon taking on number 7 Washington here, Chris. You've been high on the Ducks. Tell me a little bit about Oregon and what we should expect from them.
Well, I'll tell you this much, man. Dan Lanning, who, God, Christian, you know a little bit about him, don't you? Being a
little
fan.
bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
I like myself some Dan Lanning, man. I think he's a very underrated coach. I think he's one of the better coaches in the country, personally. But Oregon, as we know, 5-0, coming off the bye week. I think the only close game was, Texas Tech week 2. That was kind of a struggle. They came back in that game, did what they needed to do, won that game. This game, like, one team has to win and one has to lose here. And the Pac-12, as we know, is just loaded this year. There's probably 6 or 7 really pretty good teams in the Pac-12. And I think the winner of this one here is going to be in the driver's seat overall at the end of the year. I truly do. I think most people would agree with that. The great thing about Oregon, and I will say this under Dan Lanning especially, they're probably one of the most balanced teams you can find in the country. They run the ball well. They pass the ball incredibly well with Bo Nix. But I think in this game, and I do, you're going to let me know about Washington and Michael Penix. But I think Oregon is going to have to run the football, sustain some clock, keep Michael Penix off the field. I truly, truly do. It's kind of the Patrick Mahomes syndrome, in the NFL. Bucky Irving, Jordan James are averaging over 8 yards a carry, Christian, this year. I mean, we're 5 or 6 weeks through the season. That's pretty incredible. Oregon has shown that they can really run the ball. Bo Nix, 15 touchdowns to 1 interception. You can't get much better than that, especially out of Bo Nix. We watched him play at Auburn for years. Struggled with the turnovers down there. He's looked elite this year, especially under Dan Lanning. Hats off to that guy. Here's the thing. They got Troy Franklin on the outside, Christian. We know about what he can do. Big-time wideout, man. This guy, they need to get him involved early and often in this game, especially against a good Washington defense. Kid has 32 catches for 535 yards, 7 TDs through 5 games. That's right up there with some of the elite this year. Get the ball to that kid. Everybody knows about him, especially on the West Coast. But here's my big thing. Can Oregon slow down Michael Penix and that Washington offense, man? Penix is right now probably 1-2 in the Heisman if you had to pick today. He Washington's offense, I don't know what more to say about him. They're just elite. One of the best offenses in the country. Oregon's defense, so on the other side, is only giving up, Christian, 11.8 points per game, which is 6th in the country. You can't be much better than that. But they also get a lot of pressure on the quarterback. They get 18 sacks so far, or they have 18 sacks, this year on the season. That's top 20 as well. But at the end of the day, can they get pressure on Penix and keep him off the field? That is the big thing for me for Oregon going into this game. Christian, feel free to enlighten me. I can't talk on Washington.
Yeah, Chris, I mean, it's the battle of the unbeatens here. I mean, this is going to be a great game. Michael Penix, he's hitting about 76% of his passes this season. He's thrown 16 touchdown passes to only 2 interceptions, right? By the way, I mean, most of what the Huskies want to do is throw the ball. I mean, they're posting 447 yards per game through the air, all right? They're still putting up 123 yards on the ground, too. So, again, they're going to live and die by throwing the football. This offense, Chris, they're ranked number 1 in the country in total offense, right? Now they're going up against a very stout Oregon defense right on Saturday, so it'll be interesting to see how that matches up. They rank 62nd in total defense, and this ultimately, is where I think this game's going to be won and lost. You touched on Oregon's offense going up against Washington's defense. My question, can they limit Bo Nix and the Ducks' high-flying offense? Because they can put up some points too. Chris, the thing that I'm looking at for Washington is they're currently tied for 122nd right now in sacks this year. So they need to be able to generate some pressure. Now, the good news is the secondary has been pretty good even without those sacks this year. Chris, what are your thoughts and what are your predictions on this one?
You guys talked about it, or I should say you've talked about it, but it's been thrown out the internet all week. I've heard a lot of chatter about both sides on this game. We got fans on the show of both teams. We've heard a lot so far this week. This is tough. I thought about this up until this show, honestly, and I'm going to give you my prediction here. Oregon 35, Washington 38. I'm calling an overtime game, Christian, And the reason why I'm leaning Washington, it's at home. I think these two teams are so evenly matched, and this is just going to be a fun one to watch overall.
You know, I've been going back and forth, and even right now, I'm kind of going back and forth on it, Chris. I've got Oregon 35, Washington 31.